Welcome back to Let It Rip. The latest version of President Trump's travel ban will remain in effect until the Supreme Court rules on the case in the fall. Now, some say travel restrictions are a victory for national security, but others say it's discrimination. Joining us here is Akhil Al-Hamami. He is from Yemen. He spent a lot of time and money and underwent a very strict vetting process to get here. Next to him, Jared Maynard, former chair of the Macomb County Republicans. He supports the travel ban for national security. And next to him, Imam Mohammed Ali. He is from Iran. He says the travel ban is a good idea, but Trump's banning people from the wrong countries. Akhil, let me start with you. What's wrong with the president saying that he wants to at least develop a real vetting process to protect countries like yours, Yemen, from having people come in that have no ties to the United States at all?
Yeah, exactly. It's not a ban on Yemen, actually. It's a ban on the American values of freedom and equality and opportunity. I mean, everybody knows that America was founded and built by immigrants. So if you look at the history of the the history of the events of like a tourism attack in America, you cannot find even one person being killed by tourists from Yemen. If you look back to
no tourists from Yemen?
Right. I mean, tell me just how many people or American people has been killed by here in the United States by tourists from Yemen. It's a zero. Looking back to the history of immigrants from Yemen, you would see also a zero violence. So those people are trying to flee the war. The country is being devastated by the alleged coalition war, and also 80% of the population is in need of aid, not a ban, actually.
Jared, I want you to jump in here, because when Akhil starts talking about why and on what America was founded, you're rolling your eyes. Do you think that we have gone so far from the values of the country in terms of being founded by immigrants and this being a melting pot for everyone?
No, the travel ban targeted 7 countries. In Yemen specifically, there is a very large war going on, and what is stated in the travel ban in the actual White House document is the reason behind it. Terrorist groups, ISIS and Al-Qaeda, are moving in there. So what we need to do is protect Americans who are here now and say, listen, if we don't know who you are and we don't know what you want, you shouldn't be here, because we don't need to invite any more problems than we already have.
We're taking a look at those 6 countries. Iraq was on them. They took Iraq off in this newest travel ban. But let me bring in Imam. First of all, you're from Iran. Iran is on the list. What I've read about Iran says it's one of the largest supporters of terrorism in the country. It seems to me you're not against a travel ban. You just say Trump got the wrong countries?
Well, I would say, Charlie, that security is very serious, terrorism is very serious. But this travel ban has nothing to do with security or terrorism in this country. And if that was the case, if really the president or Congress were worried about terrorism and security in this country, the capital of ISIS and 9/11, the capital of ISIS ideology should be on the top of this list. So that shows when our president goes there and dances with the dictators and rewards them with $110 billion arm, that means that this is not about terrorism and security. It's about Islamophobia. It's about generalization. It's about attack on the integrity of the entire nations and single out one nation, the entire nation under ban. That is unfair. That is not acceptable. And that is bad for America. That is absolutely bad for America. We love America, and anything bad for America, we have to say it.
Jared?
Yes, Charlie.
Well, the Imam makes a point that sounds like to me that we're singling out countries that maybe have no relationship to terrorism, and we really should be focusing on ISIS in general and not a particular country.
Well, Charlie, I think if you read the White House report and they listed why they put Iran and several other countries on there, they are sponsoring, portions of Iran are sponsoring terrorism. It's happening. Number 2, we turn around and to come to America, it's a privilege. And we don't have to extend it to everybody. We have to make sure our security is first. And we're not singling out anybody. We're simply saying, if we don't know who you are and we don't know what you want, you're not coming here.
But at some point in time, Akil, you came to America. I mean, we didn't know who Akil was, and look at him. He's now a respected member of society. The Imam has been a citizen for how many years now?
25 years, 26 years.
Longer than I've been living. I mean, this is very good here. So where's the problem here? If we have a proper vetting process, these two were vetted tremendously.
Well, Charlie, I'm glad you brought that up, because what Donald Trump is actually doing, or President Trump is actually doing, is he's reviewing that process. Are we getting everything that we're supposed to be out of people who want to come in here? And the travel ban actually says if you have a visa by January 27th at 5 p.m., I think, you still can come in here. And there's a bunch of exceptions in Section 3. If you go down, anybody listening wants to read it, there's exceptions where the Counselor or the Secretary of State can waive somebody in. But what the President is doing is looking at exactly what processes we're using, what data are we collecting, and what do we need to collect to make sure the people who are coming in here want to be safe, patriotic Americans.
I would say that is a fake conversation. Really, that is not a true conversation for our nation. I mean, already 30,000 people are killed in this country. You were talking about it just a few minutes ago. In this Detroit, over 300 people were killed last year by gun. So that is the real issues that we have to deal with that. As we already mentioned, out of these 6 countries in the last 45 years, no one in this country on the soil of United States was killed in a terroristic way from any of those 6 countries. So this ban is rewarding terrorism, it helped them to recruit more terrorists, and it is punishing the victims of terrorism. And Iran is a victim of war and terrorism in 40 years.
Well, Charlie, on top of this, President Obama had a similar ban. He did a similar ban.
We're not against making this country safe. The safety of America is our safety. I mean, I agree with United States to make strict rules of getting into the United States. We're not telling to open the door for everybody. Like the normal visa from Yemen will take between 6 to 8 years to get into the United States. They're going through every single test. Even they tell them what kind of food to eat before coming to the United States. I mean, DNA, everything you can imagine. So I agree with you that there should be some rules and background check, but it's still they cannot ban a whole nation based on just randomly choosing countries.
But they didn't randomly choose these countries in this thing. They went down and they gave you state reasons why Yemen is on there, because of the current conflict and how ISIS and Al-Qaeda are exploiting that, as well as Sudan is on there, and I can't remember the other ones, but they're there.
We are seeing now trends that outside of these countries that are a part of this ban, homegrown terrorism seems to be a big problem here that we're facing. People that are already here. Do you want to see more done there?
I do. I really think if you're going to take up arms against the United States of America, whether you're homegrown or whether you come into the country to do it, or whether you do it as a foreign nation, I think we should deal with that problem effectively and quickly.
Real quick, what country should be on the list that's not on the list?
You know, as I said, we are against terrorism, and any country that may risk our community.
How about Canada?
You know,
in Bishop Airport last week or so, a Canadian citizen came over from Tunisia as well and attempted to kill a cop. Should Canada be on there?
We cannot put an entire nation under ban. There should be a right mechanism to stop terrorism. But we see that we are rewarding terrorists, but we are punishing the victims of terrorism.
We're not rewarding terrorists. We're protecting Americans.
All right,
that's what we're doing.
Hold right there, but we will be right back. Coming up, we want to share your thoughts live on the air. Don't forget, use the hashtag #LetItRip. We'll read your comments soon. Stay close.
And now it's time for you to be part of the discussion. Let's start right here. Craig writes, Senator Jones, do you announce the fact that you're carrying a gun anywhere else that you travel to on your social media page? Senator?
I've been asked by my constituents, do you carry in Flint? Do you carry in the various dangerous cities?
Imam, this question goes to you from Jim. He says the ban is not permanent. Once these countries succeed in minimizing the risk, then it should be lifted.
Any generalization is wrong. We must and we could protect our security without compromising our integrity, our interests, our image, and our values as Americans.
Let me get Akil over here. Mark writes, since when does an illegal alien have rights in this country? Akil.
Yes, I can't hear you. Can you say that again?
Yes, Mark writes, since when does an illegal alien, people coming over, they're not citizens, when do they have rights in this country?
Why should an illegal immigrant have rights in America?
I think there should be like a mechanism, as the Sheikh said, for those immigrants or refugees to come to the United States. I'm not saying to open the country for illegal immigrants. There should be a strict laws to, for those immigrants or illegal people in the country.
Lori writes to Senator Jones, when in public office, nothing, especially social media, is private. Who benefits from negative comments about Detroit?
It wasn't negative. It was common sense. I said the same thing that the police chief said.
Let's get one over here. All right, who do we have over here?
Jim says a vast majority of Muslim countries are not restricted. Therefore, it cannot be discrimination. Imam, can you take that one?
Well, the whole discussion is about Islamophobia and discrimination. We have to be careful. The victims of terrorism are punished, and the sponsors of terrorism, like we heard, our State Department said Saudi Arabia was the biggest funder of terrorism in the world, and we are rewarding them. That's the problem.
Last question, Deputy Chief Dolan. Some people say that when will we not need guns in the city of Detroit?
I don't think you need a gun in the city of Detroit. You can feel free to visit. They don't take guns in New York or Chicago. You feel free to visit. You feel safe. It's a perception of safety.
Jared, we'll have to save you for later. We're running out of time.